I apologize if the background is a bit too bright. It's in my house. I haven't worked out lighting properly here yet, but this will also allow you to see me a little bit better. Maybe if I do this, it'll work out a little bit better for you folks. Hold on. It's very unprofessional, I know, but let's see. Change this a little bit. And this might be a little bit easier on the eyes. Still a little glary, but not horrible. All right, so we have um, a really interesting situation, something like I've never experienced in my lifetime. And for those of you who know me, you know I'm in Massachusetts, which is, I think, the third highest number of COVID-19 cases reported in the country. So essentially, I'm not really in the center of the storm, and I'm in a low incidence county, so I don't think that's really going to affect me all that much. But I just wanted to talk about a couple of the astrological factors that went into springing this particular virus, and they actually started around just they started in the massive eclipses we had last year, and everything sort of broke loose around December 26th when we had a massive conjunction in Sagittarius, which was for those of you who don't know who haven't been following my broadcasts on cable, we had Venus, Mercury, Saturn, Jupiter, all in Sagittarius, along with Ketu, and December 26th was an eclipse. So that sort of like broke the dam open. It got broken open further around January 20th. There was another eclipse, and around February, Mars entered the same sign as Jupiter, and essentially what happened was the Saturn Jupiter Ketu conjunction. I looked it up because I was trying to address some astrologers that I knew that said these conjunctions were very rare, and in fact, uh, Saturn Ketu Jupiter transits combinations in Sagittarius in particular are fairly rare. But basically, this particular transit, the last time, if I recall looking it up, was in the 1800s, 1870s. I recall, and we had a shift of major powers. Okay, so France and Germany shifted positions. We also had a panic, a financial panic, which is what think we're seeing now. Um, the technical term, and you'll forgive me if I get hung up on technical terms, but I actually was trained academically in business, so I get hung up on technical terms like this. The fact that you have a large number of people unemployed in a burst due to a national crisis does not constitute a recession. Technically, it does not constitute a recession. It's a government mandated unemployment. It's a government mandated economic close down. It can turn into a recession if it goes for more than 2 quarters. So technically we have more than 2 quarters of negative economic growth. That's technically what constitutes a recession. Right now we're seeing a lot of people talk about this as being the worst um, recession since the Great Depression, and technically we're not even in a recession. Technically, that doesn't mean the people who are unemployed right now aren't feeling it and are feeling it very, very badly and are worried about the future. And believe me, I was in employment and training for a large part of my professional career outside of astrology. So that's something that touches me very much. It's something that I hate to see because I know how depressing it can be. I know how soul sucking it can be. I know it can lead to health issues um, that beyond above and beyond what this particular virus constitutes. I'm not downplaying the importance of the virus, but I'm also not ignoring the fact that there are going to be health consequences from this economic shutdown. And essentially, I am one of those who's in favor of moving ahead as quickly as possible. For practical intents and purposes, in places like New York, Massachusetts, maybe California, um, certain parts of the country can't reopen that fast. It's really not known. This is an unknown disease to us. Is its conditions are very, and K2 represents the unknown, so that's why it's a K2 triggered disease. One of my students just recently pointed out that we had a K2 related disease in the identification of HIV in 1982 and 1983. And there do seem to be certain similarities between this and HIV, but there are big differences between the two. Okay, so before people start freaking out about this is going to be like AIDS, is there are certain similarities, there are certain properties of it that are like that. There are certain properties of it that are like the SARS virus. Okay, but this is a new disease. It's probably been popping around in some form or another for a little while. It just broke, and the breaking point really came with Jupiter and Mars, unobstructed by Saturn, actually, funnily enough, because Saturn will tend to delay things like that happening. But basically, over the next month or so, I looked at the new moon chart for the next month, and I'm going there right now. I can't. I'm not trying to share the screen with you. Hold on, maybe I can. It's an option I didn't have down at the studio, so maybe I can do that with you. I can't share the screen, unfortunately. Okay, so take my word for it. The new moon chart is going to occur in on September 22nd at roughly or almost exactly. This is in New York time at 22:25 or roughly 10:25 p.m. This is New York City time. It'll be a Scorpio rising. Ketu will be in Sagittarius in the second house. Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter will be in the third house. Mercury is debilitated in the sixth house, but only for about 4 more days after that. Mercury will go into Aries around April 26th or so, and so that should at least stop some of the panic or paranoia connected with this particular illness, and also some of the conflation I've seen over the past few months. I'm not saying the issues connected with the virus aren't real; they definitely are. But I think there's been a lot of confusion, a lot of problems connected with accurate communications over the past few months, and that's on both sides of the fence. That's on the administration side and on the media side. And as I said before, this year was going to be really a very, I've said this several times before, this is going to be a fight between media and government. It's really, the battle has always sort of been going on, but keep in mind, the media aren't, I'm not attacking the media, but the media's main job is to keep your attention. Okay? That doesn't mean they have malicious intent. That doesn't mean they're evil people. But their main job is to report incidents which will keep you watching. All right, because they have sponsors, they're a commercial entity. Government's main job is to try to assure you they're doing the best they possibly can given the circumstances they're facing and that everything's cool. Okay? So essentially one side's job is to concern you. The other side's job is to calm you down. Okay, that's so they're sort of like, or to make you enthusiastic that the best thing is actually happening to you. So essentially, there's no such thing as a pure soul in this debate. And what I mean by pure soul is nobody's telling the exact, absolute, um, unadulterated truth. Everybody's covering up and trying to make themselves look good and trying to make the other guy look bad. You know, so this is not an indictment. It's just a nature, an examination of the nature of the beast. Um, I have some limited experience in media. I have some limited experience in other fields. So I mean, believe me, um, it's not a slam. Government's role is to assure you they're doing the best possible thing they can for you. Okay, that's really one of their main points. Media Media's job is to keep you concerned so you don't get too complacent. I'm also not really a big conspiracy hack. I don't believe that anybody's really causing this. I really don't believe this was planned. I think it's being manipulated by some people, which is disturbing. But that's also the nature of the beast, and it's good to be able to determine what you're seeing as truth is in fact truth, and what you're seeing as falsehood is in fact falsehood. And like I said, I think what you're going to be seeing over the next few months is going to have less to do with the disease and more about who controls the public narrative about the disease, which I think is unfortunate. But basically, essentially, we have Saturn, Mars, and Jupiter in Capricorn, which is a sign of government and government control. Saturn and Mars are malefic. They're malefic planets. And this does give, in all honesty, this does give states a chance to. Um, Mars and Saturn are control planets, so people are impatient to move, but Mars and Saturn don't want to move. They don't want to move until everything's perfect. So that's why you're getting a lot of pushback from doctors and from the media saying, "Well, we don't know how much longer this outbreak is going to last. We don't know how much. We can't predict with any honesty or with any certainty how long this is going to last. Whether or not people are going to get sick again." That's a typical Mars Saturn reaction. It's essentially overcaution to the state of um, immobility. It's not really, and again, it's good to be cautious. The major thing about this particular combination, though, is it can't last long because it can only last for about another month until Mars changes signs and it goes into Aquarius, because there'll be less pressure on people. People will feel less afraid of death, less afraid of sudden death, because Mars is a planet which acts quickly. Okay, so right now with this new moon, the new moon occurs in Aries, which is a sign of action. The sun is actually exalted in the sign, so the government will prevail in its attempts to reopen the government. Okay, and this is the highest officials. This isn't local officials. The local officials are weak because that's the moon. That's the moon rulership. And I think what you're going to see is essentially you're going to see a lot of cross-working back and forth. In terms of the disease spreading, I think actually from the charts that I've looked at, most of the disease spread will be essentially absorbed by late May, early June at the latest. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have Mars is moving out of the sign of control. Ketu is gradually growing weaker, and you'll actually have some real science, some real verifiable information, and the growth curve will even out rather quickly. There will be a retrograde Jupiter and Saturn period coming up, so that'll make people a little bit cautious about wanting to go forward. But when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius in late June, you'll start to see the economy pick up in a rather dramatic fashion. I don't think we are going to see a prolonged recession with this. Some industries definitely will be hurt badly by this, unquestionably. But I don't think he's going to see a prolonged recession after June. The other thing is, from the chart, in terms of in terms of death rates. I don't pay much attention to Pluto mainly because I'm trained and schooled as a Vedic astrologer. I did study Western astrology, but I tend not to figure. I've never seen something that Pluto does that Ketu or Rahu can't be explained doing. And that's not. I'm not dismissive of Pluto. I'm certain it has applications, and it's a societal change planet in Western astrology. So definitely, you'll start to see um, societies moving more towards centralized governments, um, and maybe like little enclaves of control outside of that. So you'll actually see more power concentrated in the elites, but oddly enough, at the same time, a dispersion of opportunities to other classes. So people forming more like clans or groups of interest. So it'll be a centralization of political and monetary power, but a decentralization of economic um, access, if that makes any sense. Because one of the things that I think I've seen when looking at the U.S. chart, and I looked at the U.S. chart a great deal before I even started this, and I was a bit of a history buff. I was a history major for a short while. Is the U.S. has these. It was founded in Rahu Mahadasha, according to my calculations, and what I follow. It belongs in the Rahu Mahadasha right now, and two Vimshotri Mahadashas equal roughly one Pluto return. It's fascinating. So that's why I said I really don't pay attention too much to the outer planets because I have other tools that do the same thing, and I don't have to go outside my system. I don't have to go outside my the rules of Vedic astrology to interpret it, or at least the classical rules. I don't have to look and say, well, how would Pluto act in this situation? What would Parashara or Priyajataka say about this? There was also another fascinating phenomenon that happened earlier this month, and there was a comet which was supposed to be enormous, but really wasn't all that enormous, called Atlas, and it broke up and it disseminated. But comets are essentially small Ketus, so that kind of underscored the influence of Ketu in the chart, because Ketus, according to old books like the Brihad Sangita, which is a classical book, um, uh, and it has a large section of it devoted to mundane astrology, comets or Ketus. This usually means some attack on leaders. It can mean assassination of leaders. It can mean changes in governments. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean it gets located to the United States. You saw Boris Johnson got very, very sick in England. Okay, so this is a world leader who got sick. We're seeing different countries like Iran getting hit very hard by this virus, and we really don't know what's happening in those countries. We really don't know what's happening in China, to be quite honest. And there are a lot of countries, and the president of Brazil is saying this is nothing. This is something which will go away on its own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up an astrocartography map for this month, for this new moon. And for this chart, we have, okay, so the United States has Venus. The closest line to the United States is Venus line. Venus is in Taurus. So that, to me, indicates pretty much recovery because Venus is in the second house. It can be a death-inflicting house. Venus can be a death-inflicting house, so you have to be careful about that. But the closest place it comes to is Florida and New York City and a little bit into Massachusetts. The other lines, which have to do with vitality and energy, are the sun line, which is passing over Nevada and California and Idaho and Canada. So Venus is not quite touching the United States. So that's good. That, to me, that indicates that death is leaving. Rahu is passing over South America. Rahu line is a very panicky line. It causes mass hysteria, as in western Brazil. And there's a Jupiter and Saturn line passing over eastern Brazil. And that to me indicates they're going to get hit kind of hard, because the 12th house is a house of hospitalization. Jupiter rules the 12th house from the sun in this chart. The sun is in Aries, as I said before. The chart rising sign is Scorpio, so Brazil will certainly get hit hard by disease. Mars is passing over Spain, so Spain will continue to do poorly. And I'm looking at Mercury's passing through Eastern Europe and Eastern Turkey and into Saudi Arabia and Eastern Africa. So this to me indicates, and there's a Rahu line in Greece and through Eastern Europe. So if we're looking for panic or fear, that part of the world is going to be very strong. Pretty much all the way through North Africa, just to the west of Egypt, and through South Africa. So there'll be panic close to Turkey, but not right on Turkey. Also, interestingly enough, Jupiter's passing over Sweden and is passing over Norway, so it looks like Sweden is going to recover pretty quickly from what happened to it. Mars is passing through, Jupiter and Saturn are passing through Iran, Iraq, and that does mean, to me at least from this chart, there are going to be considerable deaths in those countries. Mars is passing over western India and Pakistan. So those two areas are going to be hit kind of hard, and Venus is passing over eastern India. So again, there will be some deaths in eastern India. Also some deaths in southwest Australia. And Rahu is passing through Australia and pretty much through all of China. So you may see some fears that the virus is spreading again in China over the next few months. And Japan has Mercury lines close to Korea. Korea looks safe. I don't know about North Korea, but South Korea certainly does look safe to me. And there is a Saturn line passing through North Korea, so North Korea does not look safe, but South Korea does. And finally, the last thing we have is a Mars line through New Zealand and Japan, so that will tend to give them problems with health issues and even with violence. So whenever these Mars lines show up, you have to keep open to the possibility there'll be some violent action. There are none indicated in the United States. Oh, excuse me. And I was wrong. And if you look at the Midwest states around New Mexico and traveling north, not Midwest really, but Western states, going through New Mexico, Arizona, and following north, there is a Mars line. So you'll probably see some violence there. And you'll probably see some violence in Spain, France, a little bit in Sweden, and a little bit in Western India and in Russia, and also some in Japan and New Zealand. So those would be the areas I would look for in terms of protests or in terms of civil disruption. If we're talking about earthquakes, and why shouldn't we? The most vulnerable parts look to be Iran, perhaps California, and eastern South America, and also I'm looking for one more spot. I'm sorry. Also, musical accompaniment. Maybe even some in in northern Africa. So this would be near Libya. All right, so I'm going to go back and look through the signs one by one. And let's see now. So as we're going through the signs, Aries should have actually a month in which they don't feel too much peace of mind, but they'll feel a lot more energy than they have previously. They'll feel much more determined to move forward and to do what they need to do. They'll be very impatiently waiting. They'll want to be teaching, um, expressing, making money, and they'll succeed at that. Taurus, this is really April 15th to May 15th. Taurus is May 15th to June 15th, and that sign has Venus in it. Venus is going to go retrograde in May. And essentially what that means is this is going to be some prosperity, some unexpected income for the sign over the next couple of months. Rahu is, and also career-wise, it should be a very good month for them. Rahu is in Gemini, June 15th to July 15th. People who have Rahu, who have Gemini ascendants, and Sun and Moon in Rahu are going to be particularly sensitive, and they're going to be particularly panicked over this particular combination of planets until around October, to be honest. And that's mainly because Rahu tends to make a person feel like they're not secure. So Rahu gives intense desire, ambition, but also a lot of insecurity. It was placed in a mutable sign, so it does give an indication of shifts in media, but also gives an indication of shifts in these people's lives. So there'll be a lot of confusion about career and whether or not career is going to survive. That'll pass within about 4 days, around the 26th or so, and the person will feel more secure. The individuals will feel more secure. But career, this will be kind of a tough period for them. Cancer that's July 15th to August 15th. Cancer is going to have a lot of expenses this month, but also some good financial gains and also some good career advancement. So this particular sign is going to do extremely, extremely well in terms of financial gains. Relationship life will probably be a little bit problematic for them because they'll be involved with somebody who'll seem right, but the relationship will start to seem a little too closed in. So you might see people with moon or rising sign with this trying to get away from relationships or trying to not really happy in relationship life or feeling a little bit insecure in relationship life. Leo happens between August 15th and September 15th. This is a good time for Leo. Basically, the only drawback is Mercury's in the 8th house, but the Sun, the Lord of the first house, is in the 9th house. That's going to give good luck to the sign throughout all the month. It'll have a lot of enemies and a lot of competition, but basically the luck for this particular sign is good throughout the entire month, so that shouldn't be bad. Money can be a little bit problematic, and it can be confusing as to who's controlling money or who's in charge of money over the next month. Virgo is going to have some confusion over relationship life and relationship ambition. So if a person with a Virgo sun, so this is between September 15th and October 15th, had their relationship sights set in one direction, they're going to start going all over the place and start looking at a variety of things and not really knowing what they want. This will pass by, like I said, within about 4 days after around the 26th, 27th, and they'll be more determined than ever to go after their original relationship target. Also, from the chart, you're going to have a couple of planets in the 8th house for Virgo. So their vitality may be affected a little bit. Their energy levels may be affected a little bit. They may feel a little bit run down. For Libra rising, a good month. I mean, pretty much anything they want to get this month, they'll be able to get. The Sun is exalted in Lord of the 11th house, in the 7th house, and even career-wise, even in terms of possession or even part-time aspirations, this is a good time for them. A lot of disruption, a lot of activity in the home, though. Okay, and that's because of that Mars, Jupiter, Saturn combination. So this is October 15th to November 15th for those of you who only know your sun signs. Between November 15th and December 15th, that's Scorpio. This particular sign shows good traces, good ambition, good follow through. Money will be a little bit tight. They won't quite know what to do about money. Life will seem a little bit bizarre, and career life will seem very, very bizarre to them. So at least from this chart, you'll have a lot of ambition, but not a lot of direction to put it in. So give that about a couple of weeks, and you'll see the direction will take very strong form. You'll start to achieve your goals. You'll start to improve your life overall. Um, Sagittarius still has Ketu in the first house, and it's got Saturn, Mars, Jupiter in the second house. So there'll be money coming in, but it will be spent on other things coming into life. And also some confusion about relationship life, some drive to get relationship life resolved and settled and done. Capricorn's very busy this month. This is essentially January 15th through February 15th. And this sign has a lack of direction, but it also has a lot of energy to accomplish goals and a lot of innate luck. The best planet for this rising sign is Venus. It's located in the fifth house in Taurus, so it should have a lot of financial luck, but it will come slowly for this particular sign. And overall relationship life should be okay for this sign. This person will feel in charge of relationship life and fully equipped to deal with any relationship issues. Aquarius has the Lord of the first house is in the 12th, and that will still give some feeling of helplessness in terms of dealing with diseases or illnesses. And also, this sign will feel a little bit confined. It will feel a little bit hamstrung in its ability to approach things. This doesn't mean it's going to be a detrimental sign. It's a good time for spiritual activities, or for dealing with other countries, or for dealing with investments or savings or inner work for this sign. Home life should be actually calm and peaceful. Ambitions should be easily fulfilled, but again, with Mercury in the second house, money will come in, but it will also flow out fairly quickly. For Pisces, this is March 15th to April 15th. Mercury's in the first house, so a lot of confusion about relationship life, a lot of going in different directions. But financially, it looks good. And in terms of Venus being in the third house, this is a combination which doesn't really like to take chances, even if they're unhappy at home, which Rahu in the fourth indicates they are. And career-wise, they'll actually do quite well. And in terms of financial life, they'll actually do quite well as well. So the big key issue for Pisces is confusion about relationship issues, like whether or not they want to stay in the career they're in, or they want to stay in the relationship they're in. And it's going to be kind of a detrimental month for those kinds of things, but it will pass pretty quickly. Overall, this is not a horrible month. The Pluto combinations, don't get stressed out about the Pluto combinations. And the main reason I'm telling you that is because a lot of the combinations which cause this to come forward, at least from my perspective, are not Pluto combinations. They are, in fact, Ketu, Rahu, Mars, Jupiter combinations. So essentially, we have Mars slowly moving out of the sign, which it will, and we have Saturn, and Pluto's really, really early degrees. You'll have a Pluto crossover event roughly around May or so, where when Saturn and Jupiter cross over Pluto. I would pay particular attention to those times, because if we see big shifts, they'll happen around then. But I'm not convinced we'll see big shifts. The other point I would encourage you to keep in mind is when, at the end of June, when Jupiter passes into Sagittarius again. That's going to be critical, and that will, I think, will start to show a spurt of growth in the economy. Maybe an increase in COVID cases because Jupiter spreads things, but I think, to be honest with you, I think we are really seeing a flattening of the curve over the next couple of months, and I think we'll be actually in better financial shape come June. I'm an optimist. That's my bias. Um, Saturn and Jupiter in Capricorn does not necessarily cause a recession. Even Pluto does not necessarily cause a recession. This was a panic. This was a panic caused by eclipses. How we handle it will determine whether or not it actually goes into a lockdown state or a long-term event. Okay? In any event, try to keep optimistic. Don't worry so much. Try to keep your cool. You'll be a lot of people will start to be released around May. I think around the end of May, you'll start to see a lot more people released and able to go about doing their daily business, but with restrictions. So I'm guardedly optimistic this will be over relatively soon. It will give us a chance to re-examine relationships um, with our healthcare providers, with other countries, um, with governments. This is a golden opportunity. This is not a time to blow it. I think we kind of blew it when the September 11th crisis came together because everybody was focused on security and staying safe, and that's understandable. But this is a time when it's a good opportunity to look at government and media communications and see how they're essentially um, distorting our perception. Okay, that's maybe the best way I can put it. And by that, I don't mean there's anything intentionally evil about it. I don't think there is. I think it's just they have different priorities and they have different goals. And one of the things that we want to keep in mind as a people is what our goals are, what we want for our country, what we want for ourselves, not what the media or the governing body wants for us. Okay? All right. That's it. Okay? And also, key important point, this is really an excellent new moon for getting rid of past karma. There's a ritual that I was told by an Indian priest, Hindu priest, many years ago, in that if you take a little bit of brandy, take a little bit of puff rice, and put it in a jar like a relish jar. Put it in a paper bag and take it down to a corner of four corners and smash it at midnight. This new moon is an extremely powerful new moon for getting rid of bad karma, because all the bad karma will be drawn to that bag. It may sound superstitious, but I've tried it myself. Believe me, it works. It works wonders. So this coming um, uh, April 22nd, if you can do that, if you don't feel guilty about leaving stuff behind, because you have to leave it behind. Okay, maybe you can go back in a couple of days and clean it up, but you have to leave it there. So if you don't feel guilty about leaving it there, you can do that. Also, any kind of cleansing rituals you want to do, like if you want to sage your house, or you want to say prayers in your house, or do blessings in your house, it's an excellent time to do that. Okay, so you don't want to go through all the brandy and puff rice and all that other stuff. Just anything to clear your house, air out your house on that day, just to get rid of negative energy. Okay, so that's what I have to say for now. Hopefully, I'll be back in the studio again soon, and the recording quality will be much better than it is right now. All right, thank you very much, and have a great day. And I'm going to post this to YouTube. Hello, this is Gary Gomes. You just called me? Oh, hi, Alexi. How you doing? I'm well, thank you, sir. Well, I just posted a video to YouTube. Yeah. Oh, yeah.